Hey everyone, Mark here, and it's time for another manga review. This time, the second volume of a manga that I reviewed before with volume 2 of Go-Go, Loser Ranger. Before I get into this volume and everything else, minor spoilers, but nothing major. I do want to say when I filmed first my review of the first volume, I recorded that a couple days obviously before it went live. The day the video went live, I had noticed prior, like maybe a day before, earlier in that day, they actually announced an anime adaptation. So in my review, when I was talking about this would be a cool anime, this and that, it's getting an adaptation. It was announced, so there's that. That's gonna be really cool. I don't believe any real information about like studio and anything else has been announced, other than it's in production. So, volume two. Before I get into it, I love it's yellow. First volume was red, so we're going through like the Ranger colors, so to speak. Usually, when it comes to manga, I kind of like the same color and the numbers, but certain ones do change it up. Obviously, same creator of quintessential quintuplets. They did the same thing with those volumes. Each one's a different color. Then things like Don't Swim in This Nagatoro, which has different colors. So I think that's really cool. But I do like that it's the different primary colors. I don't even know how many volumes this is going to end up being, but I really think that was cool from that standpoint. If a recap, so to speak, Volume 1 was more world building, setting up the dynamic between the monsters and the Dragon Keepers, their dynamic, their relationship. Those of you who don't know, basically, this battle has been going on for like, what, 13 years. After the first year, the Dragon Keepers, which are the Sentai team, the Ranger team, they beat the actual bosses. All that's left are their minions and underlings that can transform and morph into and shapeshift into different creatures and this and that. And every week on Sunday, they basically do a live fight to keep up appearances that they're still battling this invading threat. So that's the premise of it. Basically, one fighter, Fighter D, is tired of losing every week and the disrespect and this and that. He's like, I'm going to destroy them. So he leaves, and now he's infiltrating the Rangers to try and take them out. How the whole setup, I think, is really cool because Volume Two really gave us. I'm gonna put this down because it was pointed out I was tweaking my mic settings. Apparently, my mic was so sensitive; it was picking up me like every time I touched the book. Like it was picking up little noises. So I tweaked the settings on the mic. So I hope that fixed it, and I apologize for that. That was in my Kamen Rider Kuga Volume One review. But so this volume two gave us more of a breakdown and a dynamic of how this works. So it's not just the Ranger Keepers and that's it. They have headquarters and they train civilians who can join and enlist and to either help with like oh you can do civilian evacuations or this and that and charities around town. And each Dragon Keeper has like their own group and what they handle throughout the city. And then this volume really gives us more of how the ranking works, and eventually, like someone could technically take the spot of a Dragon Keeper. So there's a hierarchy to the training. We learned about the colorless, which are basically the rookie recruits that have not been assigned one of the five Dragon Keepers to be a part of their like house, so to speak. If we want to say like Hogwarts or something like that, like there's different groups, different factions. Um, but I really like that this volume really gave us a more breakdown of how that dynamic works. We get to see more of the different personality types of the Ranger Keepers without really revealing their identities yet. By the end of this one, you only know who Red and I believe Pink are. Um, and we get to see the dynamic of these other civilians who there's a few that want to see the Dragon Keepers defeated. There's also some Hibiki who wants to reshape the Rangers to be better than what they are, to be a good force because they're kind of dicks. They're not really that good of a Ranger. It's kind of weird. They're kind of the antagonists in this story. They're ego driven and everything else. So I really like this dynamic in the storytelling of these characters. I will say, I'm trying not to spoil anything. Obviously, uh, Fighter D is kind of a you want to root for him in this manga. You really do. Like I'm reading through the thing. I'm like, man, I want to see him go because by the end of volume one, you're not sure if he's still around anymore. But he's the main character, and the fact that he could shapeshift into humans and this and makes for very hilarious situations, but also some great like trick moments of trying to find out information. Because this was just a flood of information, especially the latter half of the volume. You're learning multiple new characters being introduced right off the bat with different personality types, but it was handled really well. I mean, even previous works, quintessential quintuplets, you had a story around one character with five basically quintuplets, obviously because quintuplets with different personalities, different characteristics, and supporting characters, and that was handled really well. It's handled really well in this manga, also with how all the new characters are introduced and how they're handled. A cool thing too at the end of the volume, the last like 3 pages are literally just giving you the faces and names of all the characters that have been introduced as kind of like a almost like an encyclopedia. Here's who you need to keep track of. Here's who's in this. Um, Artwork, loved it. I loved the artwork in this. The action sequences, a lot of standoff scenes where it's like, taunting, taught like this and that. It seems more meta of a Sentai Ranger show from the standpoint of like seeing the inner workings behind the theme of the Rangers, being like, okay, like give us this monster, and okay, you got to handle this. You shouldn't like. They're so the dynamic of the Rangers is so like almost off-putting. Like you don't want to root for Ranger, and it's kind of going against everything who's a Power Ranger fan or Super Sentai fan you've grown up knowing. You don't want to root for them in this. They're douchebags, honestly, and the whole entire time you're just like I'm reading it. I'm like, man, they're like. I'm glad this is getting an anime adaptation. This was also work as like a live action. So why don't we have a show like these aren't the heroes you think they are? And I'm just like, that whole story arc too, because you have a whole city that's believing one thing and it's actually another. Um, a lot of the side characters they introduced, like I mentioned, Hibiki, he's the one who wants to reshape the the Dragon Keepers. He wants to reform it and make it, in his opinion, pure and clean, not so shady. And then we have Fighter D, who's basically obviously he wants to kill all of them. That's it. He just wants to kill them. He wants to kill all of them. And they introduced more, which was hinted at in the end of volume. Well, not hinted at. It was talked about in volume one. It's more in depth now. The artifact weapons that they use, which is what lets them really transform and use their powers. So we also find out most of the time they're just wearing regular suits. They're not actually like transformed with any real power. Um, Most of the time they're just keeping up appearances. And a lot of the other stuff that's brought up in this manga that's talked about is the recruitment process and the training and a lot of the motivations of the various recruits and lower end uh, people in the Dragon Keepers group in their motivations. And one wants to be the next red Dragon Keeper. You have one that work with blue, and there's like this dynamic, and they use these underlings of each keeper to kind of show the dynamic of how they treat people. Because obviously you see them out in public, they're taking their photos and stuff, but then you see them as basically assholes to their assistants and everything else. Even their mascot, who's a little dragon, like Red Keeper's a dick to him. The Blue Keeper's also a dick. So I thought that was really cool. There's a lot of moving parts in this manga. It's definitely something I'm going to reread it again for volume 3 because you kind of forget some stuff. They do give you a nice little recap in the beginning of the characters from volume 1. Um, it's easy to follow along too, which is really nice. I really enjoyed it, and we did. It's definitely not like the title "Go Go Losing Ranger." You might see kids might want to read this and be like, "Oh, this that," and I can see how from a younger audience standpoint, it might not be as easy to follow. But obviously, I'm older, older teens. That very easy to follow story. It's not that deep into you got to pay attention to everything. It kind of does kind of hold your hand with what's going on with what they want you to see anyways. Obviously there's a lot of air of mystery to it. It does end on a what they call a dual cliffhanger where there's two mysteries that are given to you right at the end, and now you're just like, what's next in volume 3. I will say this is really shaping up to be a really good series. It's really fun. I do like the like like I said, the the different color, like the cover colors are nice. Um, I wanted to put some stuff on the screen, but that's like, I'm really bad at doing stuff like that. But I will say, easily one of my favorite new IP, like manga that started this year in 2022. Even though the year's almost over, I think if you, I'm trying to think of how to like word it. 'Cause I'm really trying not to spoil anything. I really don't like spoilers. I will say, spoil anything. I'm not gonna spoil anything. Just read it. Just read it. Um, there for a Ranger Toku inspired manga, not heavy on the action, but all the story stuff. Like I said, like I can't repeat enough. The story, that learning all the motivations of the different characters and their dynamics is really the strong suit of this story, because it's showing that it's not always black and white. It's not always good versus evil. There is a gray area to it, and it's not just the villains that can go in the gray area. It's the heroes too. And then you kind of think, well, what makes a hero then? Like, and I really like those questions being brought up from a thematic standpoint while you're reading it. Um, Very good release. Go check it out. I picked up mine in store at a Barnes and Noble. It's obviously available on Amazon, Books a Million, wherever really you can pick up manga. It is available. It just came out, I believe, a week or so ago. I enjoy it. Um, Definitely check it out. I don't really like really long reviews. I try not to, especially without spoilers. So just go check it out. If you have, let me know in the comments below what you thought of Go Go Loser Ranger. What do you think about the anime announcement? I mean, I know from an English release standpoint, we're 2 volumes in, and we already got the anime announced. I know the run's been going for a bit in Japan. Earlier this year, it started. So I think that's really cool. We're getting an anime already announced. If you haven't checked it out, let me know in the comments below what most recent manga you picked up. What'd you think of it? I always take suggestions. I did take suggestions from one person, so I do have another video coming after Christmas for the world after the fall. This was recommended to me, especially as someone who is relatively new to manhwa and webtoon stuff. So I was like, you know what? I'll check it out. Like I've read Solo Leveling, so I was like really curious, and it was recommended, so I checked it out. But with that being said, I thank you guys for watching. Don't forget to subscribe to the channel, like the video, and I will see you guys in the next one.